How long had you and your brother been doing business before you, quote, and oversimplifying this a little bit, but quote unquote, hit the home run with this plane you're talking about now? What's it called again?
The
This
SR-20
SR-20. How
is
many
our,
years went by before you, because that seems to be
it was
your
a decade.
signature, that was your signature plane that really put you guys on the market. And
Yes,
I
yes.
don't mean that disrespectfully, but that's the plane that was the home run, correct?
That's the airplane that was a success in all true business terms.
Financially, marketability, saleability, buildability, maintenance, you hit
Yep,
the home run.
yep.
How many years were you guys in business before you got that home run? 10
Well,
years, 20 years?
it was 10 years from the time we started the company to the time we introduced the SR-20.
Okay.
And then it was another 3 years before we finished it and got it licensed to where we could sell it. And then it was a couple of years to ramp up and to get it in production and before it was really making a profit.
Okay. So I've heard you mention a lot of things that I'd never really thought about in an airplane, but I can actually relate being in a lot of small planes in my career that, yeah, a lot of those older planes were hot as hell or cold or noisy as shit or whatever. And I can see how you fixed all those problems, but I haven't heard the parachute yet because me as a beginner, that's what intrigued me the most because the one question you didn't say that I wanted to know, that I asked is, what the fuck happens if you die? What happens if you have a heart attack? What happens if you pass out on me? I don't know how to fly this sumbitch. Where do I go? What do I do? Who do I call?
Yep.
So the parachute to me, as a little bit of a nervous flyer, was a big deal. But I haven't heard you mention that just yet in your design and ergonomics and you've covered a lot of cool things that obviously made you a home run. Was the parachute in generation one or that was somewhere down the track?
Nope, it was generation from the moment we started that airplane, not our kit plane. The moment we
you've
started the
moved on.
SR-20.
We're out of the kits now,
Yep.
and we're building planes.
From the first thought of a next airplane, it was going to have a parachute.
Whose idea was that?
That was Alan's idea. It was my brother.
Okay.
So he was involved in a mid-air collision in 1985.
Okay.
The other airplane went down. Person was killed.
Okay.
Alan lost 4 feet of the wing. He's in my dad's 182. He lost 4 feet of the wing, just cut it off clean. He was able to land basically as fast as the airplane will go at full control with the airplane still rolling. So he was at the edge of controllability and he got the airplane down on the ground. Mm-hmm. And he got out and he said, there has to be another way. He didn't get out saying, airplanes are stupid, screw this, we're gonna go do something else. It was like, no, there's gotta be a better way. People are involved, people are gonna make mistakes, people are gonna run into problems. It cannot always be life or death, or how good you are as a pilot. And he really is a great pilot. He was able to get a broken airplane onto the ground. I contend that 98% of the pilots in the world are not going to land that airplane successfully. Mm-hmm. But he didn't get out saying, you got to be as good as me.
Yeah.
He got out and said, there's got to be something else. There's got to be another way.
So he came back to you and came up with the parachute concept. Why hadn't anybody beat you to this?
Well, so he came back and said, I don't know what the answer is, but we're going to go find the answer. And the parachute is something that was started by a guy in St. Paul, Minnesota. Company's called BRS, Ballistic Recovery System. And he's a guy in the 70s was flying a hang glider. You jump off a cliff in a big kite.
Yep.
And he was in one of these things. The wing broke, it folded. He's now tumbling down out of this thing, and he said to himself, if I live through this, I'm going to figure out how to put a parachute on this thing. And he crashed. He did. He broke a few bones, but
he survived.
And he said, okay, I'm going to figure out how to put a parachute on my ultralight. So that was in the 70s, and it slowly kept growing to very light airplanes, a little bit bigger airplanes. So we come across them in the late 80s, early 90s, and said, oh, this is a great idea. So our next design is going to have this parachute. It's back to the naivete of young people and the cockiness of, well, this will be easy. put a parachute on an airplane. And so from the beginning,
it makes sense, makes total sense in theory.
you know, when you look at how parachutes are used, I mean, the Apollos come out of space,
Yeah.
spacecraft under a parachute. The military will push damn near a tank out the back of an airplane under a parachute. Parachutes are, I'm not going to say common, but parachutes are considered pretty darn reliable, pretty capable. The problem is that with a parachute, they are very point-specific designed items.
What does that mean in layman's terms? That went over my head. What do you mean by that?
Well, when the military pushes a truck out the back of an airplane, they know exactly what speed the airplane is going, exactly what weight they have so they know this parachute's going to work because there are no variables. Apollo coming down, there are no variables. They know the weight, they know the speed when it's going to
They know
open.
how quickly it's going to descend.
Yep.
So they kind of pinpoint where it's going to land.
They pinpoint all of the parameters around the vehicle when they pull the chute. There aren't variables.
Okay.
We come along and say, well, we got a little airplane that might be at 3,000 pounds gross weight, and it might be at 1,800 pounds. And it might be doing 160 knots, and it might be doing 80 knots. Might be in a spin, might be in complete control. Might be
upside down.
It might have just hit something else. It might be broken. All of these things, it might be upside down. Now all of a sudden you take all the variables and say, I need a parachute to do all of this. Not this one point. It's got to be able to open very, very fast when you're going slow because you're usually close to the ground. So it's got to open quickly and decelerate. When you're at your highest speed, it's got to open slowly because otherwise it'll shred or get torn off. So you have to be able to create something to take on a huge group of variables.
And that hadn't been done to that point, correct?
That has only been done by the company BRS.
That's what I mean. The people that specialize in that.
Yep.
What other industry used that similar technology to what you were trying to use?
Nobody.
Nobody. Okay, that's what I was getting at. It hadn't been done before, meaning that there's no other industry, for lack of a better word, that you could copy. There's no other industry that is a model that says, okay, these people are doing pretty close to what we want to do.
No. And Boris Popov is the only one with BRS where they were doing it, and we looked at it and said, well, he's figured this out. This is easy.
Yeah.
We're going to take. He just puts it on 500-pound airplanes, but we're going to put it on a 3,000-pound airplane. And yeah, the airplanes that he puts it on go 100, and we're going to be going 180, 190 miles an hour. Yeah, but so big deal. That should be easy, right? Stuff like that's not easy, you know. So the way we developed the parachute, you take a concept that works, and the concept that Boris came up with that makes the parachute work is he puts inside. So on a parachute, there's, the risers that go up that hold it. He has in that, in a sense, another little parachute that goes on all the risers. And this little parachute, when you're going really, really fast, limits the amount of air going through the big parachute and won't let it open quickly. So it's like a torque limiter.
Yep.
When you're going fast, it won't open quickly. But when you're going slow, the big parachute overcomes that speed difference faster. I mean, because of the physics in it, it will open very quickly, slow, open very slow, fast. So that was the first variable. Okay, we've got something that can work. Then we thought, we'll just make it big enough for the weight and strong enough. And to make that work, we designed the parachute. The FAA had to come up with a rule. How do you certify this? To certify the canopy, they said you got to go to the desert. You got to drop. You have to do 3 drops at maximum weight plus all of the safety factors. So it was about 30 times over. And you have to have 3 successful drops, and we'll certify the parachute. Well, this is where all the bookwork doesn't exist because it's all so point specific. And we ended up designing, our drops, we went to the desert, to Kingman. We rented a C-123, which is a big cargo plane where the back end opens.
Like in the movies, yep.
Opens up. And we put together literally barrels of sand, strapped it to a crate, and put the parachute on it and pushed it out the back of the airplane. And it was 38 times doing that before we figured out how to make the parachute stay together. 38 times.
Now this is you guys and the other gentleman from the other company, or was it he wasn't not involved? It was
No, he was involved. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys as a team kind of came up with this.
Yeah.
A lot of experimental shit going on. Okay. A lot of R&D.
A lot of R&D because there's no
There's
book
no
that
base
you can
model
do
to go off. Okay.
Right.
So does this take you, again, I'm going to break things down to be simple. Is this a 3-year period that takes you to nail this? 5 years? How much time's gone by here?
It's 3 years, 4 years.
And in the
of time.
meantime, you're still making money selling what kind of plane? How are you keeping afloat?
We're making no money.
Oh, truly. Still hand to mouth.
Basically no money.
Yeah.
So there's 2 ways. So now we're on to the fundraising side. Now let's back up a number of years. We introduced the VK30, our kit plane, very unique airplane. Everybody sees it, they hear about it. You know, you might sit back and say, I'm not interested in that airplane, but wow, that's a cool airplane. These guys must be really smart to come up with an airplane like that, right? So when we decide that we are not going to make it as a kit plane manufacturer, we have to, literally, we're going broke. So we had 2 options. We either close the door and say, yep, great idea, I'm going to go work at a bank, and or we're going to go on and take on Cessna, Piper, Beech, Mooney, all of the big companies that are out there. This little unsuccessful kit manufacturer is now going to go build an airplane. We decide that we have the key to actually make a successful airplane where they haven't in this industry, on our end of the industry, I should say, for at this point now 20 years. You know.
You're 20 years basically not really showing a profit, theoretically. Meaning that you're still eating, you're still going from hand to mouth a little bit. You know,
Well, we're 10 years into it, but
you're stealing from Peter to pay Paul.
We are.
Yes.
But we're into it for 10 years. But, you know, Cessna hadn't been developing that end of the market for now 20 years. Mm-hmm. So that created the opportunity. Mm-hmm. Think of the technology changes over 20 years.
Yes.
So we're going to come in with a new airplane. It's not going to be radical. It's going to be radical in the terms of it's going to be safer. It's going to have a parachute.
You covered those 3 questions that your wife came up with.
Make sure that the other people want to be in it. And wanting to fly, the biggest reason people don't fly is because they're afraid. And they're afraid for a lot of good reasons. If something happens to the pilot, you're dead. And I literally had somebody say that at an air show where we're out trying to sell our airplane with a parachute. And he goes, well, I don't need a parachute. Been flying my whole life. I've never needed a parachute. And you kind of look at him, yeah, but you're not dead. There's a lot of people that are dead. And what happens to the people on board if something did happen to you? And he had the gall to stand there and say, well, if my time's up and they came with me, it's their time too. I'm like, well, that's not quite my attitude.
Yeah, that's not acceptable.
So the parachute piece of it.
You figure that part out.
Yeah, so we've got what we believe is the key, that we're going to change this industry.
Home run.
We're going to change the industry, and we are going to outsell, outproduce everybody else. But, we have no money. We were unsuccessful.
You got to ramp up a lot of things. You got to do production, employees.
We had such a unique design that people knew of us. So we weren't a couple of kids off the street. Instead, we were a couple of kids that, hey, we just designed and built the coolest airplane ever made, which would certainly open doors. But when we made this decision to go certify an airplane, we still were marketing ourselves at air shows, yet we no longer were going to sell the kits. So we'd go to an air show, still putting on the same dog and pony, but we priced the kit now truly out of the market. And when people would come deliberately.
Tell me again, just to back me up a little bit, why did you price it deliberately not to sell it?
Because we didn't have the capability of developing a new airplane and supporting the kits.
Okay, you had to pick one or the other.
One or the other. and one we know is a failure business-wise.
Yes.
This is the route we're going.
Okay.
But we can't tell the industry that's what we're doing,
Yes.
and we can't let the industry think that we went away.
Yeah.
So you keep marketing it,
Yes.
and you stand there, you go to the air shows, but we'd go to the air shows and talk about our airplane, talk about why it's the greatest thing in the world, and people would come and say, you know, I love the airplane, but I don't want to build it. This was opening doors for us. It was like, well, to not build it means we have to certify it. And to certify it means we need some huge investments. And we were at an air show where we had a guy come up and say, I don't want to build it, I just want to buy it. Well, then we got to certify it. Okay, then let's go certify it. Well, that's going to take several $1 million.
That much, eh?
Okay. No. So
Like, it's not a
there's
cheap
a
thing.
there's a long story in here,
Yeah.
but basically we didn't know what it would take either, but we said we wouldn't start unless we had $4 million.
Okay.
And his answer was, okay, let's go get started.
I love it.
So we took a couple of our engineers, sat down with the FARs, the flight rules, the certification rules, and they went through every single rule and they created a checklist on how do you pass this rule? How do you test for this rule? You know, what does it take? What's it going to cost? You know, how do you design? So they, in a sense, we're creating the path to be able to design a certified airplane. In the meantime, we've never certified anything before in our life, but we're the only people asking questions. They're calling the FAA saying, I don't get this. Why would you know, how do you get through this? They're asking enough questions that after a year of this, the FAA now starts calling us saying, well, you guys are the certification experts. You're the only ones doing it. So before we'd ever done anything, we had the reputation of building the coolest complex airplane.
Yep.
The FAA thinks we're the certification experts, and we've got a backing of somebody saying, yeah, we're going to go certify an airplane. Let's go do it.
So I'm confused. Why wasn't Cessna or some of the other big brands certifying their planes?
They were, but they had grown to the place where they were investing in jets. They were investing in bigger airplanes.
Okay.
They were making all their money on big airplanes. They couldn't afford, just like us, we can't afford to go back and do a kit plane. They couldn't afford to go spend millions and millions of dollars developing a better small end airplane. They didn't have the resources. They didn't have the reasons. They didn't have the engineering, they didn't have all of that. They would either have to take it away from building a jet where they know they will be very successful
And bread and butter, that's making money.
and put it down here. And they basically said, I no longer care about the low end of the industry, which opens up the door for us.
Yes. Yes.
So that created that 20-year time frame of new technology in. They're putting new technology in, but they're talking about $5, $6, $8, $10 million
Yes.
products. We're down here in a $200,000 top product.
Yes. Yes. So you get your first little bit of seed money from this investor. You obviously get certified. Are you off to the races? Not really.
No. So another piece of this through all of this, you know, how we fund things. We got a development contract to build a military drone. Again, this is the mid-90s. So we were building what was the original concepts for tactical air vehicle.
Right.
It's an unmanned tactical air vehicle. And the whole idea was that we were building a product that comes out of a Humvee that the commander at the front line can take off and see what's on the other side of the hill. They didn't have to call anybody else. They didn't have to ask for anything. And it was through a company that was an ammunitions or a bomb company that actually had the contract. So they came to us and said, you know, well, you guys are the design experts. We want you to design an airplane to do these things. And one of the cool parts of this design was it had to come out of a trailer in a Humvee or pulled by a Humvee, get snapped together in less than 5 minutes with no tools and be able to fly. So it was, you know, we had to figure out how you snap You put all the wing on, the tail on, the prop, everything, and then there was one lever inside the airplane. You throw one lever, put in all the pins, it connected all the controls, from one lever. It was a really fun design challenge.
But that money gave you a little bit more seed
And
money
that was
to
more
get
seed
going.
money.
Yes.
And in this, some of you look at how our government works, and here's the crazy part. We're spending our money developing our own product, and we're doing a military project, not on the side. I mean, it was a huge focus, but it wasn't the only thing we were doing. We get audited by the military, and they come in and they said, we're not charging enough. And we're going, what are you talking about? We put out a bid.
You accept it.
We were asked to do a bid. We said we'd do this for this amount of money. That's what we're getting paid. Yeah, but there are rules. The government has to pay a percentage of overhead. Well, our overhead is huge because we're developing something else that they have to pay us more money because our overhead is so high.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there going, this is insane.
Yes.
No wonder our
No
country's
no wonder the fucking government's bankrupt all
we're
the time
bankrupt.
and just prints money.
They came and said, you didn't charge us enough.
Yeah.
I
What
go,
real business can do that?
I
Seriously.
said, we charged what we said it would cost.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's not enough. There are rules. I'm like, okay, we'll take more money. So that's part of how we're earning money. With Alan and I, the way that we divided our time.
Yes, and before you go on with that, I wanted to ask a question about your brother, because he seems like he was an integral part of this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
What skill set or analytical skill set did he have that maybe you didn't have? Where was he strong and you were weak, or vice versa? Meaning that I've seen brothers or sisters that have started businesses together, or just couples, and one was, I actually, even on a very small scale, but my parents, for example, they were entrepreneurial people, owned a lot of small businesses. My mother was always the face of the business. Greet the customer, how you doing, kissing babies, welcoming, very, very personable, making sure people felt comfortable to come in, great customer service. My dad always handled the numbers and the back end of it and the inventory and making sure bills were paid, etc. So they have a unique set of skills that were different from each other. If you put my old man out in the front, he'd run every customer off because he's not as personable as my mother. Does that make sense? But my dad was very analytical, controlled the money really well, made sure everything was good on the back end. So on a very basic scale, they had two completely different skill sets that were both very necessary for those small businesses to succeed. You know what I mean? Yep. What is difference between you and your brother if you had to, obviously we're talking about a broad stroke of a pen here, a brush. How does he think compared to how you think? Or skill set? I don't know if I'm asking quite the right question here.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put it so much as the skill set. There are things. There are a lot of
better word.
There's a lot of skill sets he has that I don't have, or talent that he has that I don't have. He is much more the visionary.
Okay.
He is more the risk taker than I am. I'm more conservative. His true skill, I mean, it's a very dynamic person. I mean, and I don't want to say this was his skill and he didn't have he had all the skills,
he had all of it, yeah.
But this is where he shined so much. He was so good in front of a crowd, so good.
Personable.
Charismatic. He can sell the idea.
That's right. Okay.
So we divided our workload in a sense. Mm-hmm. His job was to go find the money.
Yes.
My job was to spend the money.
And manage the money.
I had a whole lot more fun spending money than raising the money.
Yeah.
But he was the outside of the business.
The face.
I was in the shop, making a
Did he naturally gravitate to that because he was just good at it? And you naturally gravitated to your deal because you were good at it? Or did you two look at each other and say, listen, I suck at this, you're really good at that, and vice versa, let's just divide and conquer?
Yeah. No. I don't recall us ever saying, this is the way we're going to divide our time.
It just gravitated that way.
Yeah. I enjoy the hands-on building an airplane. Mm-hmm. I spend all of my time on the floor.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody can say they enjoyed raising money, but he definitely enjoyed being in front of the crowd.
Yeah.
He was so good at it that we gravitated to everything outside. So, the marketing and sales and all of that gravitated all to him. Now, he was the CEO. I mean, he was the boss. Mm-hmm. I was the little brother following along. But I gravitated to what I really enjoy, and that was building the airplane. I wanted to physically build the airplane.
Typically what you really enjoy, you're good at because you have passion for it. Okay. I just wanted to know what skill set, because it took two of you to make this successful. Obviously a lot of other employees, and I don't want to undermine their work, but the two guys that have got their neck on the chopping block, and are ones that are, I always say there's a big fucking difference between signing the front of the check and the back of the check. When you sign the front of a check, your neck's on the chopping block.
Yep.
And when you sign the back of the check, you're typically not on that chopping block. So there's a difference of skin in the game, risk, etc. And I just was curious of what his skill set was, or roles and responsibilities as opposed to you and so forth. Okay. So let me fast forward just a little bit here. You've now perfected the parachute. It's on the plane. You think you've got a home run at this point?
Oh, yeah.
And do you have a home run? Yes and no?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, marketing.
So you take it to the first air show, correct?
We introduced it as a mock-up. Hadn't yet flown. We were just, in a sense, getting started. But we introduced what we were going to build at the Oshkosh EAA Air Show in '94. So we didn't fly the airplane till the beginning of '95. We didn't get certified till the end of '98, and our first delivery was in '99.
Truly, 4 years almost.
So, but we introduced it. We knew we had a home run. We had an airplane that, without doubt, was going to change the industry. We didn't know we could do it yet. And in doing it, we had this certified. We had to figure out how to get the parachute on and actually make it work. Everything come together. You had to get it certified.
You still got a lot of hoops to jump through.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to still, this is the part that a lot of people don't get, you still got to survive the financial part of this. You still got to do, the R&D is got to be incredibly expensive. All these people and engineers and smart people that are on payroll.
Yeah.
I always joke about, people ask about how do I sleep, and honestly, until I retired, before I retired, I didn't sleep worth a shit, because you're constantly worried about money.
Yep.
How you're going to pay people, how you're going to keep ahead of the money trail from constantly, stealing from Peter to pay Paul. And I think a lot of people that never ran a business or owned a business completely overlook that. They see of the money coming through, and they have no idea of the money going out. You know what I mean? Like at one of my tours, I'll get, a couple thousand people to show up. I've got to my break-even point is $180,000. So I've got to make $180,000 in sales to even think about breaking even, not even make a profit at this point. So anything under $180,000, I lose my ass. Anything over, if I do 200, I made 20 grand profit. Yeah. But when people stand back in the crowd and they see all these cash registers ringing, they're like, holy shit, this motherfucker's making bank. It's just easy just to be Clint Anderson and rake this shit in. They don't have any idea of the overhead that goes out. The 40 employees that we flew in, and hotels for 40 people, meals for 40 people, tour managers. There's a lot to this that goes on. Obviously, on your scale, it's way, way bigger than what I was doing. But I think it's a point that I wanted to make, is that it's easy to always see the gross of what people are bringing in. Do some quick calculations in your head. Oh, they're selling 50 planes. These guys are making bank. That 4 years or 5 years that you were in R&D getting this son bitch off the ground, you're trying to survive and make payroll. So you're doing that through military contracts. How are you keeping the bankers off your ass at this point?
It's going to everybody that you can think of or find that does have
capital,
an investable amount of capital. Mm-hmm. And literally, Alan spent all of his time raising money.
And you're accountable to these people, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you've got to get them a return. You've got to get them a return on their money. You've got to answer to them. So you two have really got bosses.
Oh, yeah.
You own the company, but you're sure as shit not really the ones owning it. So whoever's writing your checks are owning it to some degree, correct?
Right.
And I think that's just something that a lot of people oversee. They don't look at those parts, Dale. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because when you look at all the businesses out there in the world, the ones that you hear about are the home runs.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you got Apple and
Yeah.
Amazon, and it's like, oh, this is going to be easy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy for them, and it isn't easy for
No,
anybody else.
it's never
And when there's a couple that are successful, there's thousands that weren't.
That's right. So let's move forward here a little bit. You actually now have got through your R&D. You got the son of a bitch working. Parachutes coming out like a trooper. Everybody's surviving. Wives are high-fiving the husbands. We're all going to live. If you have a heart attack, everybody's happy. When's your first plane ready to sell?
So it's basically 5 years after the
I
time
know,
we
5
start.
years. But what year is that now? So
It's 99.
99. So you've got some. I can walk up and with a check and buy one, correct? I'm talking about that time.
Yep.
So when you're ready, so in the meantime of that 5 years, are you allowed to take orders? Are you allowed to take deposits?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
industry standard. Like you just tell a customer, hey, Clinton, it's a $700,000 plane, but we'll happily take $100,000 from you. But understand it could be 4 years before delivery. That's industry standard. That's kosher.
That's like anything. I mean, you see it with the car companies
Okay,
right now.
fair enough.
You want to go buy, the new
Yep.
electric cars that are all coming out. You're putting out deposits.
You're putting a deposit.
To
Okay.
get in line.
So you guys aren't doing anything that's outside of industry norms. Okay. But what the benefit?
But it's a risk because we hadn't done the. I mean,
you could lose, the investor could lose that money. You could go bankrupt.
We're different than
Yeah.
putting a deposit on a new jet that's coming out by Gulfstream.
That's right.
If Gulfstream says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. 2 kids in a barn, maybe not so much. So they're putting a risk.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a couple of $1,000 to get in line. Mm-hmm. It's not.
Oh yeah, I get it. I fully get
Not
that.
easy for those people to do that either.
Yes.
But through this, so as I look back now through our company's history, you see the changes that you go through. We were a couple of kids being experimenters.
Yes.
Then we became, in a sense, a development company. We were developing a product that we understood what it needed to be, but we had to develop that. Then you go, all of a sudden, we start to be able to build an airplane, and now it's like, well, now we got to be able to sell this thing. So you kind of turn into a sales company and a marketing company.
Oh, yeah.
And you're really good at that, and then all of a sudden you sell a whole bunch, and now, wait a minute, we can't build them at the rate, and our quality isn't good. It's all of these other things. Okay, now you're back to, you're a manufacturing company. Then you end up with a couple of thousand airplanes in the field where there are customers. There's nothing more important than taking care of them. Now all of a sudden it's like everything is focused on, well, we got to make sure we service them and market it enough to, so each aspect of that importance doesn't diminish one, but the company keeps changing as you're growing through that.
It's evolving.
And the part that we underestimated.
Yes, tell me. I want to hear some of the struggles. This is what I want to focus on now a little bit. Is paraphrasing a little bit. The plane's ready to sell. It's proven. It's a home run out the door. People can buy one, etc. Okay, we're going to pick that up a little bit after that. But I want to know more about these growing pains as you're growing, and there's lots of them. So I don't expect you to bring them all up. But if you could name the top 2 or 3. For at least me personally, and again, I was never at the level you guys are at, but I always said the growing too fast is almost crippling. Yep. And that's what happened to me a lot in the early years. Yep. I was growing so quickly, almost doubling, tripling every year. I just couldn't keep up with the sumbitch. You know what I mean? I couldn't stay ahead of it enough to get good at it. It was too much growth is almost as crippling as no growth at all.
Yep.
And that was for me on a small scale. So if you could name some of the biggest challenges you wish you knew about or you faced, tell me what they are. Tell me some of your greatest, failures, fuck-ups, things that didn't work.
The growth, the cost to grow. Mm-hmm. We underestimate. I think everybody underestimates.
I think they do.
And every business, I think, still underestimates it today. It's like, we're going to grow. The cost to grow is enormous.
Yes.
So in a sense, you're creating a hole of debt.
Yes.
The debt hole isn't anywhere near the bottom when your product comes out. Mm-hmm. And the way that I look at it is, it costs, today to develop an airplane, it's going to cost several $100 million. It's going to cost every bit of that to put it into production and get it going. And it costs every bit of both of those. So let's say it's $200 million to develop an airplane. It costs $200 million to get it into production. It costs $400 million to support that product.
Yeah.
So it's, you got a product, they're like, well, now all I got to do is build 2 of them or 3 of them. I just got to build more. That should be easy. No. That ain't easy.
Not at all.
And now I got thousands of customers out there. Well, all of these customers, first of all, you have to keep developing the product, whatever product. You got to keep making it better and better and better, because what you want is your customers to always want your next product, always be a part of the next product. They have to, in a sense, be heard. How do you make an airplane better? The customer says, I don't like this. This is a problem, or this broke, or this didn't last. Okay, you make it better. As with any product, you sit back and say, you know what, I had that early product and this didn't work. I told the company this didn't work. Now look what they did. Holy criminies, am I smart?
Yeah.
That guy's a customer for life with a problem. So that, back to, we introduced in 99. We knew we weren't at the bottom of our spending hole. But that's where I think we underestimated what it took to ramp up, how quickly we could ramp up, what it cost to ramp up. And
keep it up.
That's where you put something together and you got some makeshift tools, and you can negotiate the tool to make sure that it comes out right when you're building one at a time. And maybe you can kind of do it when you're building 3, 4 at a time. But now all of a sudden, when you have to produce 100 of them, makeshift doesn't work. You're hiring somebody off the street and you're teaching them. It's really hard if your tools need manipulating. It's not just, I'm going to bolt this tool together and what comes out is right. No. So that ramp up
was huge.
Was huge.
Do you want to be a slave to the bankers, or you want to be enslaved to the private equity people? Who's the bigger devil?
The private equity is by far the most expensive. Far more expensive.
They want a bigger return on their money.
Yeah, far more expensive.
I'd agree with that, yes.
Than a bank. But a private equity is we're allowing them to earn all the big money because there is a flexibility with a private equity.
What do you mean by flexibility? Be more specific. They let you do what you want. They don't make you jump through as many hoops to get the money. Give me an example of flexibility.
Flexibility is, especially with an early investor, you come with a plan, this is going to cost $10 million. Nope, it costs 11. There's flexibility. It's not, okay, you just spent my $10 million, I'm going to bankrupt you tomorrow.
Yes.
With a bank, you have covenants, and you hit those, or they're going to call your note.
That's right, yes.
An investor is looking at it going, well, spending my money isn't how I get it back. So they're there saying, okay, you need another $1 million. There's flexibility. It never comes cheap.
Yes.
That extra million is more expensive than the first 10.
Hell yes.
But you can usually get it.
Yes.
And you want to have investors that aren't giving you their last dollar.
Yes.
Because then you're both done.
Yes.
With a bank, and right or wrong, and when you create enough of a banking relationship, and typically banks are great to work with if you don't need their money.
Yes. Isn't that funny?
If you need their money.
They're complete assholes, yes.
Well, there are rules, and they're
Isn't that
being
funny?
watched.
When you don't need a bank, they love you.
Oh my
and
God!
when you need them, when you need them, and they know you need them, they'll make you do a song and dance and jump through the hoops. Isn't that funny?
Well, and often they don't care. For a bank, shutting somebody down, it's like, oh, okay, that was a bad run, but you're done. With an investor, it's usually a smaller group. It's not regulated in the sense that you're sitting down and communicating with them, and that's the other thing. If you're in bed with investors, and you might think that they're snake oil salesmen because they're going to charge you 25% where the loan is 8%.
That's right.
You know what? You stay in bed. You communicate. You make sure they know every single thing, because if you need 10, or if you ask for 10 and you need 11, and they know every single thing coming along,
They know you're not pissing the money away, yeah.
and it's not a surprise. And instead of 20% for the 10, and that next million is going to be 25%. If it's a surprise, that next million is 100% compared to,
Yes.
it's just,
Yeah.
and it's back to, communicate, bad news
Yeah.
early
Yes.
is a lot better than bad news late.
One of the things that I did with my business is nowhere near on the scale of what you were doing is I, over the years, had many opportunities to take on investors, private equity investors, etc. And it was tempting. A lot of money there. It was tempting because one of my Achilles heels growing my business was I knew I was better than my competitors, but they had much more money than me. I was broke. I was young. I didn't have any credit. I didn't realize when I came to America at 21, no credit's worse than bad credit. They'd loan a bum on the street with bad credit way more money than me having no credit. You know what I mean? And it was very frustrating me for the first 10 years because I knew I could beat them. I knew I was better than them. I knew I could outmarket them. I knew I had a better product, but I didn't have the marketing dollars. I was doing everything in-house ourselves, our own marketing team, our own, we were basically doing things on the cheap to get by because we didn't have big dollars. So when people came along and said, hey, I'll give you X amount of dollars and so forth, and that'll get you up and running a lot more marketing, advertising, etc. It was sure damn tempting. But in the back, and I'm so glad I didn't do it, on the back of my mind, Dale, I didn't want to be owned. Yep. In the back of my mind, I said, at some point, this son of a bitch is going to tell me what to do and how to do it and when to run it. Yep. And I can't live like that. I'm call me stupid, hard-headed, driven, whatever you want to call it, positive or negative. I had to be the captain of my own ship. So I refused a lot of that. And I'm so glad I did, because one of my competitors early when I got started took on a private equity investor but bought half his company. It ended up ruining the guy because the guy basically ran off all his good people, pillaged and raped all out of the business for 15 years, and left the original owner with basically jack shit. He's divorced now, not even relevant. I don't have a pot to piss in. But in his peak, it was hard for me to look back, and he was making a shit ton of money, and it's hard for me as a young guy looking like, man, I'm better than this guy. But all that money came from a private equity investor. Now, the one thing I've noticed about equity investors, they will never lose as a general rule. They make their money. They sure get their 23% off the top and make sure they get it first. They get paid first. Every single time they get paid first. But then eventually when I got enough money to loan from banks, I liked the bank part better for me because they weren't going to be in my day-to-day business as much, telling me what to do and where to do it. The only time they did do that to me, I only lost money in my business in 23 years, 1 year. I lost money. And then they came in, which really pissed me off because it's like, you know what, for 22 years I've made a profit. For 22 years I've paid my note, paid my interest, never gave you an ounce of trouble, paid my shit on time. And the 1 year I lose money, but I still make all my payments. You never wait a day late for your money. Yep. You some bitches want to walk in here and tell me how to run a business? Go fuck yourselves. You know what I mean? It really annoyed me, Dale, that they did that to me. That 1 year that I lost money, they walk in there and start asking me, where's your business plan? What are you doing? Son of a bitch, you forget the 22 fucking years I did really good? You forget the years that I never, every year, not years, but every time I never missed a bank payment. So I was very anti-bank when I retired, you know what I mean? Because I never wanted to go through that again. But yeah, that's something I pride myself on, is I never took them on. But in your case, you couldn't have survived without taking them on. You were such a large scale from where I was at. You couldn't survive, I don't suspect, unless you took on equity investors, unless you had banks, because you're just dealing with so much money that you can't build your business without that capital to do that.
Right. It's today to develop an airplane, even the simplest airplanes, it's a couple $100 million investment.
So let me ask you this question, because I can know it for myself. If you said to me at 47, Clinton, start your business again now, I wouldn't do it, because things have changed so much in 28 years. It's so much more expensive for me to start my business today and be Clinton Anderson today, where back, before it was a VHS tape and $2.50, I could record something with a camera and get up and running. You know what I mean? Today it's way more expensive. I don't think I could do it today. If I had to ask you that question, if you had to start Cirrus again today, you and your brother, could you do it in today's market? With things being so much more expensive, is it possible to pull it off? I was in the right place, Dale. I was in the right place. People will say it's luck. I was in the right place at the right time and saw an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I jumped in a river and paddled like a sumbitch. I worked very, very hard, but I paddled. But now I would not say in my world that river's there, but there's no current. When I got over here in 1997, there was a river of money flowing.
Yeah.
It was flowing hard. And I was smart enough to see the river, jump in with my canoe, but I just didn't wait for the current to take me down. I paddled like my life depended on it. Today, if you told a Clinton Anderson to get into my world now, there's still a river there, but it ain't flowing anywhere. It's stagnant water. So you would have to paddle that sumbitch all the way down to the end because there's nothing taking you there. When I got into it, it was a flow of money. You know what I mean? So what would be different if you had to get back into it now, you and your brother?
So, first of all, it's two different questions on would I do it again or could somebody?
Yep.
And I think there is still a market.
Yep.
I know there is. There's still startup companies. There's people now that look at us and they're out raising money saying, well, Cirrus did it.
Yep, that's good.
And therefore we can do it. And it's true. I mean, I think it can be done. It is a different model than what we did. It is bigger numbers. It is more complex. I mean, Alan and I, working in a barn, created our first airplane. That would be pretty tough today because what makes aviation today so much better than it was 20 years ago is all the electronics. It's how simple it is to fly. It's, but that's huge money compared. You're not going to find in a junkyard.
Yeah.
The avionics. You're not going to find in a junkyard control system that you need today. So it's a bigger leap, but without a doubt, there's somebody working on a project someplace in the aviation industry that I might look back at right now and say, oh, that's the craziest thing I ever saw. Like Cessna was saying about us.
Yes.
25 years ago, Cessna's going, these guys are nuts. We don't have to worry about them. It'll never work. Well, guess what? It worked, and on our end of the industry, we're kicking their butts. Now, granted, Cessna's hugely successful. It's a great company.
Yes.
But where we build airplanes, I think they've kind of said, okay, Cirrus, you can have it.
Yeah.
And we are the best thing for Cessna.
Yes. Because
they start in our airplane, they move to our Vision Jet, and what do we all do with kind of everything? Oh, well, now I can afford more. I can afford to go farther, faster. I can afford to take not just 4 adults, kids. I can take my whole company. So we are feeding them a lot of customers.
Yes.
But, each company, you keep growing because of those costs. And there's somebody creating something now that I can see the next trainer coming along, and we're going to be there going, go ahead, come on, feed us the customer, because they don't want to fly around with 2, they want 4 people. So, it's there. Would I do it again? The reason that question is almost impossible to answer, I have enough that I'm retired. Mm-hmm. Patty and I, we obviously can't spend stupid, but
you can do what you need.
I'm not worried that we're going to run out of money before we die. We're going to be able to have food on our table. But when I started, I didn't have anything.
Yes.
Today I have something.
Yes.
I have something to lose.
Yes. You're much less risk. I'm much more less risky the older I got.
Yeah, because I have something. I have something to lose. I also don't have that energy anymore.
No, you don't. And you're right about that. There's a special decade, isn't there, between 20 and 30. 20 and 30, you're the Energizer Bunny. you have a certain amount of stupidness, because if you knew how difficult it was, you probably wouldn't take it on. That's one of my favorite lines about me is if I would have known what I went through over 28 years to get to where I was, I probably wouldn't have done it. If you would have actually sat me down and said, this is all the stress, this is all the bullshit, this is all the debt, this is all the heartache, this is the 2 marriages, there's a lot of shit that goes on with this to be successful, you probably wouldn't do it. But when you're that young, you're dumb enough, stupid enough, got enough energy to overlook any of that. You know what I mean? To overlook that. But that's why I said I always tell young people, don't piss away your 20 to 30. That's your decade to get your shit together. That's your decade to work hard. That's your decade to really focus on your career and get a base to your career and establishment, so that in your 30s, you still have to work hard, but you don't have to do those insane hours. Every decade obviously gets worse with your energy.
Yeah. And there's a startup that I'm working with a little, and I like to advise the next generation of people that are working on some of these things. And it's tough because, if I knew today, if I knew then what I knew today, would I do it? The answer is no, because it's like, well, we were naive enough
to try it. Yes.
And the way Alan always put it is, we're dumb enough to start, smart enough to finish. Yeah. Because it does take that blind, naive faith, I can go do this. So when you're working with somebody who's starting a business and they're going through and they got these, here's what we're going to do and this is how quick, and you're sitting back going, no way in hell.
Yes.
You do not have a clue what you're in for. If you say that, you don't want to quench that drive. Yes. He's got to believe that he can do it. Mm-hmm. So instead, it's just nudging without saying, this is crazy. But let's go do it. You got to have that drive, and then you got to be there to help, steer them some places without telling them reality of, you have no idea how much work you just signed up for. Yeah. And how much work for the next 20 years. And I don't want to tell you, because you might say, you're right, you got to, and then you won't finish. You got to finish. And
so let's take it to a little bit different side. So, it's easy for people to focus on your home run, what you made a lot of money from, what you get famous from, what you're known from. But every company, every entrepreneur has got their fair share, or a lot really, of just plain ass stupid ideas, plain ass things that didn't make any money, plain ass things that, looking back on it, you have to chuckle and say, well, that was never going to work, but you tried it anyway. If you could name 1 or 2 things that you could say to yourself, man, I lost a shit ton of money doing that, or it was a good idea, but it was never going to implement. Can you name anything off the top of your head that is a funny failure that people could get a chuckle out of? Because again, it's easy to look at your successes when you're a successful company and say, and almost give that perception that it was like, here's a perfect one for me, not on the scale of you, of course, but one of my greatest ideas, the stupidest, greatest ideas when I was young in my business is, I thought I had this catalog. Back in the day, I had a 5-page catalog. This is long before we did the internet and everything like that. And I did a competition that if you buy a halter and lead rope, you go in the draw to win a $25,000 horse. You know what I mean? And we had this thing on the back of this 5-page catalog. Well, that's fucking illegal. It's gambling. We didn't know, but somebody turned me in to the Ohio State Lottery Board or some bullshit in Ohio when I lived there. And we got a nasty letter in the fucking mail that said, you can't be basically being a lottery system promising a prize if they buy something from you. We broke the law. I was young. We were dumb. We didn't know. I thought it was a fucking awesome idea. Yeah. Well, then I'm outside in the dumpsters at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm throwing out $35,000 of printed catalogs that I can't use anymore. I have to cease and desist. The state's up my ass. So I just printed $35,000 of catalogs. Now, to your company and to me now, that's a piss in the ocean. But in those days, that might as well have been $350,000, $3.5 million. That was a lot of money back for me back then. And I'm literally putting $35,000 into 2 dumpsters. That hurt. That hurt pretty good. It really did hurt financially and emotionally Can you? But I have to laugh at it now. But do you have anything similar you can talk about that was a stupid idea, but at the time you thought it was great and you lost a lot of money from it, or just lost time on it even?
Well, there are a number of things that we lost time on. You know, when you say that there's a stupid idea, it's hard to, because even your catalog, that's a great idea. Your lottery,
Yeah.
it's a great idea. Didn't realize it was illegal.
No, I didn't.
There's the
I didn't have enough money to have an in-house attorney.
No.
I didn't have enough money to have a board of directors. I'm just a kid thinking of cool shit to do.
Right.
They're very hard.
So when you look back at things like that, oh yeah, there's products that we were changing our whole production line for a product that we were sure was just about ready, and it's now starting down the production line. And this is going to change aviation again.
Yeah.
And we just invested millions and millions and millions of dollars, and we're about to go live with it. The company has turned. The ship has started to turn, and then it's like, oh, this ain't going to work.
Yeah.
We got a problem here. Stop it here. Take these airplanes, convert what you can, push the rest into the dumpster. And yeah, we've had a few of those.
Yes.
We took a flyer once on a deal that was going to happen, and because of the timeline and
Yes.
getting the deal done, we had to produce this number of airplanes by this date, and we're led on for on and on and on. And yep, it's done. All we got to do is sign it. Done. Well, now we got to start production to fill these airplanes, to only have it never get done. And now you got 30 airframes. It's like, okay, now you're spending as much to build them to change them back into a sellable product. And you're like, why? Who in their right mind would actually start
To be there. Yeah.
on a promise? It's being taken down. And actually, when we were out raising money, there's so much of that out there.
Yeah.
Oh, I love the idea. I'm in. As soon as you get to this point, I'm in. And then you get to that point. It's like, yeah, okay, but I see the risk. Now you got to get to this point.
Yeah.
And you get led on until
They keep moving the bar.
until it's like, well, screw this.
Yeah.
By the time you're in, it's kind of back to the thought of the bank. You won't invest until we absolutely do not need any money. Then you're going to come in and expect this deal. I see the writing. I was like, nope, we're out. Move on. But yeah, we've got.
You got your fair share of scars and things that didn't make money.
Well, we've got our boneyard
Yep.
full of things that we tried that didn't work.
Yep.
Or failed, didn't meet the
Yep.
the requirements that we put out for it, that we knew wouldn't sell then. And you build an airframe to try something that goes into you're going down a direction to find out it doesn't work, and yep, that goes into the boneyard. And
yeah, a lot of people don't see that. There's a lot of failures for that one success. Let's talk about employees a little bit. One of my weak points really was the business as far as employees go, meaning that I always joked, and it's kind of the truth really, I was really good at making money, horrible at managing it. I was really good at making it and being the front guy like your brother, etc. But I could never put the right money people in for most of my career. Now I've got it right, but for most of my career, the people handling that money and spending that money, I could never, they weren't very good. Let's just say it like that. I was really good at making money, but not so good about keeping it and putting it in the right place. And that was just through purely lack of experience on my end, hiring the right people and managing the right people and all that kind of stuff. So that was my Achilles heels for many years, is the employees, because a little bit different different and not different. When your brother's out raising capital, he's away, but you were back in the factory managing the flock, keeping an eye on the flock, making sure everybody was doing what they were supposed to do. I'm broad spectrum here, big brush here. And he was out raising the capital. My Achilles heel was I couldn't be both places at once. You know what I mean? So when I'm out on tour, I'm touring, I'm, like a band. Think of a band playing, they're touring, etc.
Yep.
They're making all this money. It's all coming in. But the cats are away, cats away, the mice will play. There was nobody back at home managing the money, making sure the employees were doing what they were supposed to do, etc. And that was one of my biggest frustrations for many years, because I didn't have a wife. My first wife was involved in the business in the early days, but after that, I didn't have a significant other like you had your brother. You know what I mean? Where he could be out raising money and you were back at home keeping the factory moving, so to speak. I never had that. I couldn't be in two places at once, and that cost me a lot over the years. So, and once I got better at hiring the right professionals and putting them in the right jobs, it certainly got easier. But you two kind of started from nothing. You didn't have any employees. So what was your biggest challenge in growing the business and hiring the right people? Obviously, in the beginning, you were hiring your own employees from the very first one. Obviously, in the end, you probably had a hiring department, a headhunting department, whole HR. They handled that, and you might come in for the upper level people, interview of them after the second or third interview. But the vast majority of you you're not seeing anymore. But in the early days you were. What kind of lessons could you tell me or the audience about hiring people? Some people got some really good theories on it and some people don't.
Quick story on hiring. The very first employee we hired still works at the company. So we've got 2,400 employees now, something like that. And he's still there. It's probably an appropriate story for I go on employees, but he was a local pilot in the Baraboo, Wisconsin area. He lived on a farm, had a little grass strip on the farm, and on the weekends he would fly over for something to do. He'd fly over, and Alan and I are working on this airplane, and he heard that we were there, came over to see what we're doing, stood around the first weekend, came there, kind of watched us work and talked a little. He did that 3 or 4 weeks in a row. He'd come over and he's just kind of standing around, and we're getting into the fall time frame of '86, and it's like, well, Dennis, if you're going to be here every day, why don't you help? So then he was coming over every weekend through the rest of the year. He'd come over and work Saturday and Sunday. Monday he's got to go back to his regular job. It was right after the first of the year of '87, so that first Monday, whatever, or the first day after the holiday, whatever that day was, he shows up on our doorstep and is like, Dennis, what are you doing here? Why aren't you at work? And he goes, well, I quit my job. You quit your job? Well, now what are you going to do? He goes, I'm going to work for you. And Alan and I looked at each other. Oh, we have an employee. Now what do we do? Yeah. I mean, we had no clue.
That's my point. So there's a lot of growing pains there. I want to know if you could give some examples of growing pains. Yes.
Well, there's like, how do we pay them?
Or
what does that
maybe
mean?
more than growing
All
pains,
of that.
but lessons in hiring.
So, but the lesson that we learned in those days, we had some, impressive people that wanted to come in and tell us how the world was going to work.
Yeah.
And we were too young, too stubborn, too set in our ways. And we didn't need to hear from the expert that we were a couple of idiots, and we literally had one guy come in and tell us everything we're doing is crazy, that the greatest airplane ever built is a Bonanza, and if a Bonanza could be made better, Beechcraft would have done it. Yeah. Like, well, the Bonanza now is 70 years old. I think we have learned a thing or two.
Yeah.
But the point is, it depends a lot on what stage you're at. When we started, what was the most important thing to us is somebody with passion.
Yes.
Somebody who could see the vision, somebody who could buy into it. If somebody walked through the door saying, I'm looking for I got some skills here and I'm looking for a paycheck, or, had that type of attitude, well, I'm here to see if I want to work for you or if I'm going to go work for the next guy. It's like, oh, go work for the next guy. Right. I don't need somebody who's here weighing us out. I need somebody who walks through the door and says, wow, what you guys are doing is cool and this is going to change the world. I want to be a part of it. Yeah. And We got that with Dennis. We got that with our current president of innovation and operation. Came to us for a summer job when he was in college and
Never left.
never left.
Yeah.
He was an intern in college, and they came with that passion of, I believe in this. It's not a job. I believe in it. I said the story, the guy who's Tuesday night says, well, I've got my 40 hours in already.
Yes.
You're not going to find an employee that says, you know what, I'm going to work 2 20-hour days.
Yes.
And show up the next day.
Mm-hmm.
It's passion.
Yes.
They have to be believing. It's not a job. It's so much more than that.
Yes.
We hired then experts as we were ramping up. And we had a couple of great guys who saw the passion, saw the ability. Maybe one of them that I'm thinking of came in. He was at the end of his career, and he brought with him a lifetime of knowledge in this industry. But it was like, I see this is going to be this is kind of like my last swan song.
Yeah.
What you guys are doing is going to change the world. I'm not going to try and change that, but I am coming to say, I've been at this for 40 years. But he wanted to end his career with something
cool.
Yeah. He was great. We had a couple of guys that, we've been through it. We know it. We know exactly how to do this. And actually, as I think back, the failures were more, oh, this guy's the expert. He really does know. Let him go do it. Everything we're doing was new. There aren't any experts. Yeah, I'd been through it with somebody else. And, we hired a production guy that came from one of the large companies that are out there. This is the way you do it. Well, you know what? He had an infrastructure and a company that had been around for 50 years. Mm-hmm. That's the way you do it there. Yeah. We have none of that here. We're starting from zero. Production number one. It's not expertise. It's, and depending on the stage of the company, that type of thing, it comes down to somebody believe in this. Are they willing to take the extra step to be there? And when you're a young, small company, if they don't have that passion also, that doesn't mean that they're going to work for free like we were. No. But if they don't have that, if they can't demonstrate a belief that they're not worth having.
Let me ask you this question. We are who we hang around. So I hang around a lot of people like yourself and Randy that are smart men, entrepreneurial, very successful in their business, made a lot of money, made a lot of mistakes, managed a lot of people, etc. And I keep hearing this, and I see it in my own world, in the horse world, and I talk to other people in my world. And I want to know if it's different in your world, being aviation is completely opposite to horses. But I keep hearing, and I see it, is the same thing over and over again. And I'm curious to see if you see it in your industry, that the young people just don't want to work. Kids that are coming out of college now don't grasp the concept of start at the bottom and work your way up to the top. They don't grasp it. It doesn't compute with their head. They're going to think they're going to start a new career with a $100,000 a year job. And they're very delusional. Yep. In my world, I want to know, do you see similarities in aviation? Or, it's a completely different industry. So you can't just say, oh, that's just a horse thing. These motherfuckers are completely delusional. Like I put up a saddling job, which is an entry-level job in my world, kind of like cleaning the bathroom, you know what I mean? Cleaning the janitor job at $60,000. I couldn't get a kid to fucking do it. 60 grand to groom a horse, which is like, if I walked into your offices, I got to mop the floor of the bathrooms, wipe down the mirrors, empty the fucking trash. A relatively mindless job that doesn't take a lot of skill set. Couldn't do it for 60 grand. Couldn't do it. They wouldn't work for it, wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I worked 2 years of my career for free. From 15 to 17, I worked for free. Just for the experience. Just to get my foot in the door. Now, 28 years later, I make millions from that 2 years of experience now. I didn't know it at the time. I was just wanting to learn. But I make millions from it now. I couldn't get a kid to come in and work for free for all the money in the world now. I just wanted to say, do you see that in your world, or is it only in my world?
It's definitely not. it's not only in your world, and I think it is systemic everywhere. So, yeah, I mean, we've had some of the most talented engineers come through that are willing to do anything. And, and this is back in the beginning where they're a part of something, and yeah, and it's everything to them. Today, and it is the college kids that trained, or the person who's kind of taken his path through education and said, I kind of cubby hold myself. I'm going to be a mechanical engineer. I'm going to be this or whatever it is. Boom. All of a sudden, the people leave college thinking that insane starting expectations.
Yeah.
The other thing I see is it's so easy right now to move a job, especially with the way everything's on a computer right now. And we just let the whole world work from home.
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't like their job. They're working at Cirrus, and at 5 o'clock they log off of Cirrus and they log on with somebody else, and they now work for somebody else. There's no emotion. There's no attachment. There's no interaction. You don't go to the office. You don't know who you work for or why. It's just a job. And that's a scary look ahead.
I would agree with that.
Just, if there isn't anything other than I do this because I've been given a job and I get a paycheck, the quality, the innovation, the drive, it's all gone.
Yes.
On the side where they're not hired for a specific skill, so our manufacturing people, we have to train them.
Yeah.
And
Bring
it
them from the
takes
inside out.
time. It takes time to become really good at their jobs, and they get paid more and more
As they progress this
by the breadth of knowledge that they learn, and their value for us keeps going up because they can do more. They're more valuable.
That's right.
The number of people that come through the door, the turnover rate is astronomical because they walk in the door, they work there for 2 days or 3 days, or worse than that, they work there for a month. You invest the first 6 months that somebody's there, it's all investment.
Yes, very much so.
Or maybe a year, but you're there investing in them. And I'm like, I've decided I don't want to do this. I'm gonna go work at the gas station across the street. And like, oh my God, it's so easy. You walk out and you walk into the next place. Life isn't that easy. There's going to be a rude awakening.
Clinton's grabbing a cocktail and we'll be right back. Get yourself one and enjoy this short clip.
I have a rule that says I ask myself, everybody that I interact with, am I getting positive energy from this person? Anytime me and you interacting right now, when I walk out of this building like I did last time, if I feel like I got positive energy from being around you, I enjoyed your company, I enjoyed the conversation, I enjoyed the experience, I'm going to do it again. If I didn't enjoy the positive energy, or you drained me. You just I was like an emotional tampon for you, and you just fucking spewed your shit all over me, and I sat here and drunk and let you verbally vomit all over me. I'm never going to see you again. So I ask this question to myself every day for every person I'm thinking of. Do I get, as a general rule, positive energy from being around this person? If the answer is yes, I interact with them more. If the answer is no, I cut them out of my life. So Dale, we're back from the break, and you said what? That was that point we left on.
Yeah, that kids today are in for a rude awakening.
What do you think that rude awakening is?
I don't know if it's just kids, but the rude awakening is it's not so easy to get a job. It's not this easy to move from place to place. You can't just get up and leave. You can't burn bridges behind you because they no longer matter. They do. That's why I always
say this to people. The most valuable thing I'll say all day, it's not what you do at a job, it's how you leave a job. How you leave a job will be a huge component of how your next job starts.
Yep.
So if you leave on good terms, leave with a good attitude. I always tried to, anytime I left a job, I've worked for myself most of my whole life, but any of the times I've left jobs, I always tried to work harder the last month, do more the last month. I always wanted my employer to think, why the fuck did I let this kid go?
Yeah.
I always wanted them to regret letting me walk out the door. So I always gave them more so that the last thing they remember is, holy shit, this kid was good. So when the next employer called them, because your track record always follows you.
Yep.
You know, if I could tell any young person anything, listen to this. You will always have your track record follow you. It's like the internet. Be careful what the fuck you put on there, because it will follow you to death. How you leave an employer will follow you. You might not think it will, but it will.
It will, it should, but it doesn't right now. And
No.
that's one of the things that, you know, the job abandonment, the number of people who just don't show up. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a term also, this quiet quitting, which I'm not quite sure what that means. It's do a job bad enough until it's finally okay to leave. I'm not quite sure what quiet quitting is, but it's not going to be this easy. It shouldn't be this easy. Mm-hmm. And you can see what the way our economy is right now, what the Fed is doing is making sure it's not that easy, because the economy was not right.
Yes.
You know, it hadn't been right for the last 3 or 4 years. You know, interest rates shouldn't be zero. Mm-hmm. All of these
Nothing's
things,
free.
Nothing's free. All of this is, in a sense, coming back right now.
Yes, it is.
And how do you get inflation under control? You slow the economy down. Guess what happens when you slow the economy down? You can't just walk out the door and expect the job next door. Mm-hmm. You walk out, that might not be there. Mm-hmm. You know, so have another job before you quit this one. Yeah. Leave with an opportunity to come back.
Yeah.
Don't just burn a company.
Yeah, burn a bridge. You know, to me, it's almost easier for young people today to grow the corporate ladder or grow your skill set. It's actually easier to me to stand out now compared to when you were 20. Me too, but even you're a little older than me. But 30 years ago, showing up at 8 and leaving at 5 was not a big deal. That was expected. You weren't a hard worker. You weren't a go-getting some bitch. You were just, that was like, you better fucking do that.
Right.
Now, if just to get a kid to show up at 8 and stay off the phone all day, stay off Insta and shitter and Twitter and all the bullshit, and just do your job till 5, you look like a legend. The bar is so low now. Yep. But if you'll actually just go to fucking work and work, I always say this, it's amazing what you can get done in 8 hours if you actually work for 8 hours. Yeah. Not fuck around, not be on your phone, not texting, just do your job for 8 hours. It's astonishing how much work you can actually get done. So for a young person wanting to get ahead in today's world, I would say it's real easy. Show up first, finish last, stay off your phone, ask questions, do your job to the best of your ability, show some passion. You will rise. I'm not saying you'll do it in 48 hours, but you sure as shit will rise through the ranks. And most companies now are so desperate for a young person with that skill set of passion, they will train you to make more money. They will pay you to learn more. They will develop your skill set. They will actually pay you to get a better education to get to the next level. Yep. But if you'll just show up and stay off the phone and actually engage the job, and it's disgusting to say, I don't even think 8 to 5 is really a fucking job. You know, compared to where we built these businesses, and even your dad came home at 5, had dinner by 6, went back to the nursing home to 9:30 at night. That's what it takes to be really successful. And so to me, it's even easier to stand out as a great employee now because the bar's so low, Dale, in my opinion. The bar is so low. When I offered that saddling job up for $60,000, which again, in my world, you don't know horses, is a very low entry job. Everybody flipped out on Facebook. I can't believe you're only paying $60,000 for this job and blah, blah, blah. There was one guy's comment that got on there, and he said, all you people on here that are commenting are out of your mind. This is an entry-level position with the world's best guy in his field. Think about the opportunities that it would open for you, knowing this guy, being in his company, getting in his good graces. What opportunities could this guy open doors for you? And I chuckled when I read that, and I said, this son of a bitch gets it. Yes.
Yeah.
I had a girl one time, Dale, walk up to me, a young girl that probably 18, 19 years old, worked for me for about 3 months, and she walked up to me and she said, I don't want to do this job anymore. I don't like training people. I like horses, but, you know, I don't want to deal with the public and people and all that, and I don't want to be here anymore. Very respectful. And me having so many kids, just heartless little son of bitches, quit on me, I said to her, you know, when do you want to leave? Expecting her to say today, tomorrow. Yeah. She shocked me and she said, I'm going to leave whenever it's good for you, whenever it's convenient for you to have a good end point for me, whether it's a month, 2 months. You know, I want to make sure that it doesn't put you in a bind. I said, that's phenomenal. I said, nobody ever does that. I said, I'll tell you what, if you could stay 30 days for me so I could rearrange a few things, I said, I'd really appreciate it. But I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you. I said, do you want to stay in the horse industry? And she said, yes, I want to stay in the horse industry. I just don't want to be here. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do for you. You just name the trainer you want to go work for. Name the trainer, who you want to be. I know them all. I've got their all cell phone numbers. I said, I'm going to get you a job wherever you want to be. She said, really? I said, yeah. She came back to me the next day, gave me a name. I called that trainer up the next day. I said, I got a girl here. She didn't work for me, but she really is good at being passionate. She shows a lot of integrity, a lot of loyalty. I said, you need to hire her. He said, I'll take her instantly. Took her off a phone call. I got that girl 4 jobs over 10 years. She'd stay at that job 2 or 3 years. Then she'd want to get a new skill set, so she'd go work for a different trainer. She'd call me back up, Clinton, do you know a guy called this? I said, yeah, I do. Let me give him a call. I got that girl 4 jobs over 10 years, all because she just handled me the right way. Yep. She quit me with integrity.
Didn't burn a bridge.
She didn't burn a bridge. In fact, I almost think, looking back on the conversation, Dale, I think she might have even said, I don't even like the way you train horses. Like, I think she even went a little further and said, I don't like the way you do things here. But she said it with such respect, I didn't get offended by it. Yeah. And she quit with such integrity. I did nothing but want to help this girl. And I got her 4 jobs over 10 years with trainers that would have been very difficult to get jobs with. There was a waiting list to get into these people. You know, you just couldn't walk in the door. Yep. And I was her gateway. That guy, when he made that comment and he said, think of the opportunities starting an entry-level job with this guy, where this guy could take you in the world. I know horse trainers and people in my industry all over the world that I could get people jobs with, and I have. But out of all the people that have quit me over the years, she'd have to be one. There might only be 1, 2, or 3 out of 28 years that quit me with that kind of integrity. Does that make sense? They quit me with me wanting to do nothing but helping them because of the way they quit me. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And that's why you never burn a bridge. You said it. You never burn a bridge. I don't care how much you want to burn the son of a bitch down, how much maybe you feel like you're entitled to burn that bridge down. Whatever you think it is, don't do it. Because somewhere, somehow, you always have to cross the fucking bridge that you least expect you will ever need to cross. Yep. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Well, whether you will or not, why take that chance?
Why blow it up?
Why blow it up? Yeah. Just in case you want to cross that bridge again. Yeah. Don't blow it up just
because you feel like it. In my experience, it's almost like karma. The bridges you think you'll never cross again, you seem to always have to cross. It's a weird thing. Yep. The ones you don't want to cross, the ones you think, I'll never need to go do that. Sure as shit, 5 years, guess who you've got to actually make a phone call to? Yep. And if you don't blow the bridge up, it's pretty easy not to have to eat any crow.
Yeah, and you made the comment, the expectations that kids have, coming out of college. Last spring, so I wintered down in the Phoenix area, and last spring, when the colleges are coming to their graduation, and they did a survey of what different kids expected for their first job, what the salary should be in all of these different fields. And the commentator or the newscast person, when they're going through these things, could not present it with a straight face. It was like, where are they coming from? They're going to start, and I think one of them was they wanted to get into the news, but they want to start at $125,000. It was like, what are they teaching to think that there's opportunities like that. It just, there's an expectation of it's going to be easy. I set my price, I go, and in reality, like this girl, that first job is an opportunity to learn.
Yes, you're getting paid to learn.
You're getting
and
paid
you'll
to
move
learn.
on to the next one. And then move on to the next one. And I admire people, you know, growing and making more money. I always like that. You know, they all want to make fun money and have it be 40 hours. And it doesn't work that way. It might work that way when you get to our age more and you get to retire some or slow down. And, you know, there's a time where that shit does happen. You know what I mean? I don't work very hard and still make a lot of money, but that's a long way down the track. That's a long way down the racetrack. So I just,
lifetime of developing
it's a lifetime
something.
of development. And I always just chuckle that there is no free money. The reason we're fucked right now in the economy is because of all that stimulus money that went out there. The government put out trillions of dollars of quote unquote free money. And now we're paying the price because people took that free money because they didn't earn it. They pissed it away and spent it, which drove up demand, drove up supply. Inflation went through the roof. And now we're paying for it.
The free money wasn't only the stimulus.
Yeah.
Getting the 0% loan.
Oh, yeah.
Free money everywhere.
Yes.
And that's the side that really cost the economy.
Yeah.
Having the prime rate at zero,
Yeah.
that's
It's too easy.
crazy.
It's too easy. I said to somebody the other day, I said, here's what's a shame about what's happening now. I said, you know, people love him or hate him. And you don't have to comment on this by any means, but I love Trump. I'm a big Trump supporter. Okay, I'm sorry. He's got his flaws like everybody does, but under when he was president, the economy was booming. It was rocking and rolling, in my opinion. And the people I hang around with, which is people like yourself and Randy, that are entrepreneurial people. And we all had one thing in common over 4 years. The economy was rocking and rolling and things were moving along, okay? And in that period of time, all of my employees, or at least say the real key ones, the ones that made a big difference, they all got significant raises in that time period. Do you know why I had to give them such good raises? Because I was going to lose them. Right. The competitive market was so competitive that the money was flowing so good, not by stimulus money or fucking just government throwing in money, but the actual just free capitalism kicking ass. But if I didn't pay them more, I was going to lose them. And I couldn't afford to lose these good people. So I had to put the golden handcuffs on them. I had to pay them enough that they were not leaving my ass. Here's what's a shame now. 4 years later, with inflation and everything the way it's gone up, gas prices and cost of living, all those raises I've got eaten up. They're back to zero again. So if I gave this person a $10,000 a year raise, it all just got eaten up like that. So less than 2 years after he's out, kiss goodbye to that raise, it's all got eaten up because of the concept of free fucking money. There is no such thing as that. Everybody has to pay the fiddler at some point. So you say, 0% interest, etc. I'm not going to deny that as part of it. I think a lot of the stimulus money had a lot to do with it, that it got driven in a tremendous amount of money into the economy. But with that comes now things are more expensive. Yep. So now we're actually, all this inflation and all this money, now we're paying for that free money. Yep. That's where this is coming from now. So you got the free money, congratulations. Now we're paying the banker. But you know where the banker is now? It's at the grocery store. It's at the gas pump. It's at lumber supplies. Now you're paying the banker now. So it all got wiped out. That's what I just think is humorous.
But that's when you go back, was it real before? It wasn't real because we're paying the price today. Mm-hmm.
And we will continue to.
And you should pay all along.
Yes. So let me ask you this, we'll finish up now. If you had to give one piece of advice to a young person watching this, a young Clinton or a young Dale, what was your brother's name, Alan? Alan, a young Alan, what could you tell him? What would you say if you had them to give yourself some advice at what, 61 now, did you say? 61. What would you tell yourself now?
It's pretty much where I always come back to. Do what you love. Do what you're passionate about. Find what you're passionate about. Do what you're passionate about. Do it the best. Don't do it for money. Do it the best, and the money will come.
Okay.
That's the first thing. We've talked about don't burn the bridges when it doesn't work out. When you think you got the perfect job and you don't,
Yeah.
We hire employees that we think are the perfect employees. They're not.
Yeah.
Employees go to the perfect job and it's not. Don't burn. Even when, as employers, when you have to tell somebody it's time to go, don't burn the bridge with them either.
That's right.
The same respect goes
Both ways.
for a business leader. This isn't working out, but I'm going to, I respect you and I'm here. I'm going to help you if I can, but it's not here.
Yes.
That goes both directions, and when I speak at universities or even high schools, the other thing is, today it is easy to go get a job. Mm-hmm. Every business has a help wanted sign in the window. It still does today. It isn't going to stay this easy. You have to take advantage of everything you can. And, I try to tell people, don't show up for an interview looking like you just fell in your dad's tackle box.
Yes.
If you got everything pierced all over your face, take it out for a day.
Yeah.
You want to use advantages that you can.
You only get one
First
chance
impressions,
at first impression. Yes.
first impressions are important.
Yes.
And you can say, no, they don't really matter. They do.
Yes.
Dress for the occasion. Put on clean clothes. Pull the piercings. Be respectful. If you
Show
put
up
them
early.
back in when the job starts, deal with that then. Take every advantage that you can to get the job.
Yes.
Right. When you go to work, the new employee, you should be first.
Yes.
You should be the first one in the door,
Sure.
the last one to leave.
Yes. You will stand out so quickly.
Yep.
You will get your boss's attention. People will notice you.
Yep.
And if they don't, another company will.
No, exactly.
Another company will. But companies are so desperate for really good people that if you stand out, you can almost name your price.
Right.
But the difference is kids want to name their price stepping in.
Yeah.
You don't get to name your price going in. You get to name it walking out the door. Make sure he knows
your value.
make sure he knows how valuable you are, and then you can call your price and you'll get it.
Create your value.
Yes, create is key
You don't
word.
get to demand your value. You get to create.
Create it. If that won't happen in 48 hours, it might take a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, 4 years. But if you're in the right place with the right culture and the right company, you will command what you're worth because they will know you're worth it and they know how expensive it will be to replace somebody that good.
Yep.
I want to pay the key people in my business enough money that my competitors can never steal them from me. Because they're so valuable, I want to make sure that I'm paying them enough that they're not going to leave. Because I know how hard it is to replace how good they are.
Yeah, and it's a vicious circle. Mm-hmm. Think what a business could pay everybody at the business if they weren't constantly training the new guy.
Yes.
That could go to everybody else. It's that constant training, the constant turnover. The person who's been there for a few years, when the new guy comes in, you're doing the job for 2.
Yeah.
Until they get trained, So as a colleague to somebody, help them stay.
Yes.
Your life's easier if the guy that just was hired stays.
That's true. So for people who don't know much about airplanes and want to learn about Cirrus and so forth, they'll go to Cirrus's website. They can learn, we didn't even get to talk about the jet. That's another subject, but you have a really high-end jet that's popular over the world now, a single electric engine jet. But they can go to Cirrus website, learn all about them. Where's the manufacturing now? What city?
Well, the website's cirrusaircraft.com. Headquarters, the main manufacturing plant is up in Duluth, Minnesota.
Okay.
So we're northern Minnesota. We've got a facility in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Our customer side of the business is all run out of Knoxville, Tennessee. That's where sales, service, training, all customer aspects are driven from there. We've got salespeople all over the world, training, some company-owned, but training centers that are independent that train just Cirrus pilots all over the world, service centers all over the world. Aviation is a fantastic
So yeah, I was just going to say, if
opportunity.
you're a young person and you have some passion about flying and something, it sounds like Cirrus is the kind of company you could get in on the ground floor. And if you have a passion, have a skill set, want to learn, you could go some places.
Yep. Yep. No, there's a lot of opportunities at Cirrus. There's a lot of opportunities to start at Cirrus. You know, we want you to start and stay there. But aviation in general.
Yeah, it's just a booming industry.
Aviation is not a bunch of rich guys just flying around for the fun of it.
Yeah.
It is an industry that makes sense. Businesses fly big jets because there's somebody who needs to get someplace, or a group of people that need to get somewhere to keep a plant running. You know, for a company like the auto companies, you know, Ford and GM, you know, they got hammered back a decade ago when they flew to Washington when we were going through the last recession. The reason they're flying around is because they don't have time to sit in a car. They don't have time to sit at an airport. They don't have time to be there and say, "Oh, your flight just got canceled."
Yeah, here's standby.
Guess what? This plant's going to close unless this guy gets there and
And how many
fixes
people
this thing.
lose their jobs if the
And
plant
then
stops?
There's thousands of people that are depending on somebody moving. Aviation makes sense.
Yes.
It is good business. It's good economics worldwide. It is important, and it is a fantastic career.
Yes, yes. Well, Dale, cheers, mate. Thank you so much for taking the time to come in.
Thank you.
Thank you for your wisdom. I've enjoyed it. I'm not a plane guy, but I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you, talking with you. I love learning from people that are successful, been there, done that, and you're a great inspiration of you know, for what you may not like me saying, but rags to riches. You started with nothing. You built an empire. It's changed the world. It's changed aviation. And I want people to see this and say, I don't have to come from money. I don't have to have wealthy parents. If I work hard enough, I have passion, I'm willing to pay my dues, I can be number one. You can change a world, but you have to have the guts, the balls, the charisma, the passion to get it done. It's not about having opportunity. You create your opportunities. Ian Francis, my mentor, he always says, luck is when hard work and opportunity meet. Hard work, and when the right opportunity meet, that's what you call luck.
Yep.
Too many people think luck is just what lucky people get. No. Lucky, quote unquote, lucky people see opportunity, and then they meet it with hard work, and they knock it out of the park.
Yep. Hard work creates opportunities.
That's exactly right. Cheers, Dale. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Today's episode was filmed at and produced by Uncut Productions, marketing by Stewart & Associates, and organized and administrated by Down Under Horsemanship. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time, mate. Cheers.